Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is Professor Anime, and welcome back to yet again another Tokyo Ghoul review. This is going to be a discussion on episode 3 of the Tokyo Ghoul anime, so without further ado, let us begin. Now, I know that the Tokyo Ghoul anime has had a few hiccups here and there. I mean, its pacing has been kind of oddly paced when it comes down to episode 1. We had an entire 6 chapters adapted, which made the story feel incredibly rushed and rushed over the character interactions as well as introductions as well. And then we also had episode 2, which, despite a few scenes that were omitted, it actually had relatively better pacing than the previous episode. It actually adapted only 3 chapters of the manga in episode 2, and actually was fairly paced fairly well, in fact. However, when it comes down to episode 3 of the Tokyo Ghoul anime, this is probably the worst episode that we have had by far, and the reason is because this episode, simply put, just felt all over the place. This episode just felt really, really off, and looking back on the manga, as a manga reader as I am, I'm not an anime only, so anime onlys, when it comes down to your experience with this episode, you're probably not going to really mind all that much, but you might draw to the conclusion that this episode did feel off in some cases, and when it comes down to me as a manga reader, I just had to go back and check how many chapters they adapted. So they adapted a total of about 5 chapters within this episode, as well as maybe, you know, counting some scenes that were in chapter 16. This would also confirm that they adapted 6 chapters, because we left off on chapter 9 of episode 2 of Tokyo Ghoul as far as what they adapted. So in this episode, you're technically getting 5 to 6, possibly 6 chapters of the manga being adapted within this episode. However, everything was spread out. This wasn't adapting from chapter, 10 all the way to chapter 16. This was literally an episode that had certain scenes playing before even the events that we see in the continuing chapters. So, yeah, this episode just felt really off in a lot of cases, and also omitted some of the scenes that were partly taken in the investigation of Nutcracker, like the cafe scene, for example. The only thing that we really got when it comes down to, drawing an investigation closer into the Nutcracker case was the cross-dressing scene. So, yeah, why'd you omit the stuff beforehand, that led up to this point? Like, why? I don't understand. But not only that, where we left off in episode 2 of the Tokyo Ghoul anime was the conclusion, where we see Hayase Kaneki, meet Toka once again. And where episode 3 begins is that it's leading us into the introduction of Kane. And also, we see Shu back in this. Now, we don't really see him, as he's kind of, like, in a decrepit state ever since, Kaneki basically left the planet, because we do know the whole dynamic between Shu and Kaneki Ken. Simply, Shu is someone who can't live without Kaneki, and ever since Kaneki has completely just been, wiped off the planet, disappeared, he's fallen into a very decrepit state, into which he is simply just not taking care of himself whatsoever, to the point where he is unable to even feel certain emotions, which is where we start off in that one scene of the episode, which was actually chapter 12 of the manga. So, yeah, really, it's just really weird. But it's like, anyways, going back to the whole Toka and Kaneki Ken scene that we saw at the end of episode 2, that was supposed to be continued on. But yet, they completely disregard that these two met within this episode, and we just simply head into the Nutcracker case. It's just like, this episode was just all over the place. Like, why? Also, when it comes down to the scene where we see Juzo being reintroduced in the series of Tokyo Ghoul, there's a certain scene that plays out in the manga, which is honestly hilarious with the whole dynamic between him and Hayase Sasaki. Hayase Sasaki literally stabs the living crap out of Juzo, and it was just really funny in the manga, but they completely omitted that scene within the anime, sadly. Now, this isn't something that I particularly care for all that much because it doesn't draw away from the story of Tokyo Ghoul. It's not like a huge deal, but like I said before, there are certain scenes that have been omitted from the Tokyo Ghoul Re's manga in the anime. So, yeah, sadly, we didn't get that scene. So, you know, the Tokyo Ghoul Re anime is definitely facing some hiccups right now. It's definitely facing some hiccups and has a weird sort of, you know, it doesn't really seem like it knows where it is going in the series as of right now. At least personally from my viewing experience, because, like I said, episode 1, we had chapters 1 through 6 being adapted, which made the series, you know, first off, start off incredibly rushed for the viewers. Episode 2 was actually adapted fairly well. You know, minus several stuff that was cut out, but nothing really too major. Maybe the only thing that I would say major that was left out of episode 2 would be the whole, you know, Chin thing with Kaneki, because that actually plays a major role into his overall character. So, yeah, there is that, but honestly, episode 2 was the best thing that we have had so far from the Tokyo Ghoul Re anime. Episode 3, it's just all over the place. It seems like it doesn't know the direction in which it wants to go. We had 5 to 6 chapters that were adapted from this episode alone that were just spread out all over the place. And honestly, I might have to give a thumbs down this week for Tokyo Ghoul. Now, this episode wasn't technically horrible, but it was, in fact, quite irksome for me to deal with because of the vast majority of changes and things that were, in fact, left out. That, in fact, were, you know, something that, you know, should have been implemented for the story, especially when it comes to this whole Nutcracker case. I mean, they even skipped out on some of the stuff with, like, Torso in the beginning and completely just rushed through that just to get to those fight scenes. And honestly, it's almost as if that's what Studio Period is doing. I don't want to say that is what they are doing, and I hope it's not what they're gonna do, but it seems like they just really want to get down to the nitty-gritty action of the series. And that is what's really keeping me from, you know, really having the enjoyment factor that I've had from, you know, the manga's perspective. And I hate saying this, but seriously, if you anime-onlys out there want the full experience of Tokyo Ghoul, you are really going to have to read the manga, unfortunately, if you want the full experience and details as to how certain events came about and certain key characters within the series. Also, in this episode, it does seem as though Ayato and Eto have some big plans in the future when it comes down to this auction raid arc that we will be getting to into the anime, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, when it comes down to this episode of Tokyo Ghoul Re, honestly, I'm probably going to have to give it a thumbs down for this week in terms of my personal enjoyment. Again, it wasn't a particularly bad episode, but it did have a lot of certain things that just made this episode kind of frustrative when it comes down to a manga reader's perspective. So yeah, manga readers, you're probably going to think that this whole episode is just all over the place. It wasn't a bad episode, but the direction of it was very, very questionable. So yeah, that's at least just my personal thoughts on the matter. However, the song choice in this episode was actually very, very good. I actually did like the music quite a bit in this episode of Tokyo Ghoul Re. And also, we had even a YouTuber who sung one of the OSTs for this episode of Tokyo Ghoul Re. One of the song choices that was implemented at the end of the episode. So, Amalie, everyone probably knows who Amalie is. She's a big YouTuber who sings anime openings and stuff like that. Seriously, Amalie, very good job on you. That is something that is a monumental achievement for any YouTuber, especially an anime YouTuber who can actually voice act, let alone sing a song within one of the animes that they love. Like, that is awesome. That makes me very, very jealous. So, congrats to Amelie for that. But yeah, anyways, guys, with that said, that pretty much is my overall thoughts on this episode of Tokyo Ghoul Re. I'm still kind of, you know, off-putted by the fact that we did not see the Toka and Hayase Satsuki scene extend out a little further like it should have been. That's honestly how this episode should have started off, you know, drawing from the conclusion of last week's episode, but in this episode it kind of just disregarded that fact. I don't know why, but yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below of this episode of Tokyo Ghoul Re. Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Did you think it was all over the place? Did you think it was rushed? Just let me know your overall thoughts in the comments down below of what you thought about this episode of Tokyo Ghoul Re, and let me know also in the comments down below, are you still enjoying Tokyo Ghoul Re despite the fact of its changes that it has had? Just I want a diverse comment section in the comments down below. I want my manga readers and my anime onlys to comment in the comment section, so go ahead and do that. And also, with that said, be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one.